everyone, I'm Rachel, and in this tutorial I want to show you 8 different basic pencil strokes using the Color Therapy app. When it comes to drawing, you may already know that there are a lot of different ways to make marks. In this tutorial, I'll show you how to apply basic strokes such as hatching, cross-hatching, contouring, cross-contouring, scumbling, circles, free draw, and stippling. Some mark-making techniques are suited for certain subjects, and we'll go over that. So let's start off with a very basic pencil stroke, and it's called hatching. So what I'm going to do is go in the color palette and just select a basic solid black. And then in the manual mode, I'm going to select the pencil tool. I'll leave the opacity at 100% and the size at 0. So our first pencil stroke is called hatching, and it's very basic. It's just making a series of quick, short strokes going in one direction, and that's it. They're not curving at all, and they're just going from one direction to the other, and they're parallel lines. Now, the closer you put them together, the more of the illusion of shadow it will create. And the further they are from each other and the shorter the lines, the lighter it will look. So what is hatching good for? Hatching is a great technique for shading anything that is has straight lines or geometric object. It's also good for shading anything that has hair or fur. Essentially anything that has texture going in one direction. So this also works really well for grass. So the more layers you do, the darker it will be. So that's hatching. Now our next stroke, that's going to be cross-hatching. So it's the same thing as hatching, but now we're going to add another layer of lines going in the opposite direction. So what I would do is first start by hatching like what we just did before. Then when you're ready, you can start cross-hatching in the opposite direction. And that's it. So cross-hatching is also another stylistic preference. It's also good for coloring something such as fabric. And the same rule applies. The more layers you add, the darker it will become. Now our next stroke is going to be contour lines. So contour lines are the same thing as hatching, but now you're going to go with the curve of the object. So it will be the same thing like I said, and then if we're going to imagine that this object is round and has shape to it like a ball, then what you'll want to do is begin to curve those lines and contour them around the ball or sphere. Now what is this good for? This is good for making any object look like it has dimension, like it's 3D. It's good for drawing and shading any object in that way, such as human bodies or anything at all. Contouring seems like it's a little more challenging, but it's actually not. All you have to do is just curve the lines according to how the object is shaped. And again, if you add more layers, the darker it will become, and that creates a shadow. So now we'll move on to cross-contouring, which is the same as cross-hatching, but again, the lines are going to be curving in the shape of the object. So start off just like you were going to be contouring, with contour lines going one way, and then cross over, going in another direction, and making sure to curve those lines. The more layers you add again, the more that it will look shaded. So cross-contouring is really good for following the form of an object. It also adds a bit of attitude and style to your drawing. Next, we're going to be doing scumbling. Now this is basically going in a bunch of different directions on your paper, and it's sort of like if you're scribbling in a way, and you kind of want to change the direction every little bit as you go and keep the same sort of shape as you go. So the more you scribble in one place, the darker it will become. So scumbling works really well for coloring in objects such as rocks or landscapes, anything with a lot of texture. And this one's fun because you can't really mess up. It's sort of anything goes with this. Now the next stroke is small circles. So what you'll be doing now is overlapping small circles or ovals in a more controlled way. So it's sort of like scumbling, but you're going in one direction with one shape. And you can also vary the size and the weight of the shape for a different texture. This stroke works really well for drawing something such as wool or fur. Now, of course, you can make up your own strokes. Here's one example of just free drawing. And this is a really fun way to do patchwork texture. It's basically doing hatching in one direction with a few lines and then hatch in a different direction. So we're changing up that direction all the time. Nothing is really consistent except for the length of the strokes. Now, the more that you overlap them, the darker it will be and the more shadow you'll have. It kind of looks like sort of basket weaving. It's good for coloring something such as that. Fabrics, materials, adding texture to anything basically. Now the key to this is really just continuity so that it looks the same all around. And our last stroke is called stippling. And this is basically just adding a lot of tiny dots until it becomes shaded. Now for this example, I do want to raise the size up to about 8% because sometimes it's harder to see the dots at a small level. So I like to raise it just a little bit. It is a little bit time intensive, but it is a really fun technique. You do want to remember to hold the Apple Pencil or your stylus straight up and down so you have more of an even dot. And remember, the more you clump the dots together, the more shaded it will become. Here's what the circles look like with the lines removed. Remember, these basic pencil strokes are here for you to experiment and choose your own style. These can all be used to add great texture to a drawing. You can also apply these strokes using color for additional interest. If you'd like to see more tutorials like this, don't forget to subscribe to the Color Therapy YouTube channel so you don't miss any new tutorial videos. Thanks for watching our tutorial. You can get the Color Therapy app for free on the App Store.